This video covers the following tests: viscosity test and gel point test. The following tools will be needed to perform these tests: a Steinhall cup, a strainer, a measuring cup or beaker, a 2 to 4 ounce cup of starch, and a water heater. You will also need a thermometer that is non-glass, submergible, and features a digital temperature readout. Steinhall cup calibration. The calibration test of the viscosity cup should be done daily to ensure viscosity tests are accurate. Using a stopwatch, measure the time that it takes for water to fall between the first and second pins. The proper way to perform the calibration test would be to use distilled water at 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Most facilities may not have this, so you may use tap water. Begin the calibration test by filling the Steinhall cup with the heated water. Using a stopwatch, start the timer when the water passes the first pin. Stop the timer once the water reaches the second pin. If the measurement is not within 15 to 16 seconds, the following must be done. Clean the orifice of the cup's plate. The plate could be upside down, so you may need to remove it and replace it on the other end. Check the rubber gasket to see if it is worn out or missing. The pins might have been moved, so you may move the top pin up to increase time or down to decrease time. Once you have verified the issue, restart the test. Restart the test. Checking starch viscosity. Begin by collecting a sample of starch. Fill the Steinhall cup with starch by pouring it through a strainer. Ensure the temperature of the starch is up to 100 degrees. Empty out the Steinhall cup. Refill the cup a second time to begin the viscosity test. Begin the timer when the starch passes the first pin. Measure the time it takes for the starch to drop from the first pin to the second pin. The viscosity of the starch will be affected by its temperature. Use the temperature viscosity correction table as a reference when measuring the starch's viscosity. Viscosity is directly affected by the temperature of the starch. Maintaining and controlling viscosity will assist with repeatable machine settings to achieve optimum adhesion and board quality. Gel point test. The gel point test is performed to measure the point where the starch's moisture is bursting, like popcorn would, but with the starch suspended in water. It absorbs moisture while rising in temperature until it reaches its bursting point. As you are conducting this test, the starch will then start to get thick and very tacky, with a visible line at the end of the thermometer. Finally, it will start to stick onto the thermometer. Once the gel point is reached, you will notice a 1 to 2 degree drop in temperature. The reason why the temperature drops at the point that the starch bursts is because the water in the starch is slightly cooler and exposed to the thermometer. Begin the gel point test. Collect a sample of starch that has not been contaminated with water. Fill the 2 to 4 ounce cup with the starch. Fill the water heater with tap water. Heat it up to a temperature of 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the starch cup inside the water heater and begin stirring the starch with the thermometer. Be sure not to touch the inner walls or the bottom of the cup to avoid any false temperature readings. As you get closer to the gel point, the starch will feel thicker and its viscosity will increase. Near the point of gelatinization, the starch will become thick and begin to stick to the thermometer. You will notice that a tail will form behind the thermometer tip as you stir. When the gel point is reached, the cool moisture inside the starch will burst. The moisture begins to cool the starch. You will notice the temperature begins to plateau. Once the gelatinization process begins, the starch bursts and the moisture begins to cool. You will notice the temperature will drop 1 to 2 degrees. After the temperature plateaus, it will begin to rise again. This completes the gel point test.